Testing 1 2 3. Microphone check 1 2. All righty. Thank you, Don. Never a believer. Okay, so how many of you have already seen this? And I think, yeah, here's the other half. Okay. So for those of you who have seen this, what can you tell me about it? What do we know? Thank you, She Warrior. Good to see you. Patty, what's up? Welcome. Cindy, hello. Christine, Don Spain says, have not. All right, well, let's take a close look. I think we'll start with this. Appears to be page 1. I'm not exactly sure where it comes from or who got their hands on it originally. Brian Simonetti, what's up? I know it was done in a parking lot. Well, I know all about the tip, but who leaked this information or who provided this information to the public? The actual sheet itself with all of these details. All right. So I guess we'll just start from the top. All right. So there's the domain. We have Kathy Shank's name. She's listed as an investigator. Server W1. Wonder what that represents. Seems to be some doctoring of some sorts. Not quite sure what's going on there. The official Orion logo. Okay, so does this mean we're dealing with tip 75? Never a believer. Well, where did you get it from? This was obvious a trial exhibit. It is probably a free Ricky turd who didn't redact. A free Ricky turd? It's a bit harsh. I'm glad it's not redacted. So it says last activity, February 19th, 2017. So that must have been either when it was cleared or sent to Jerry Holman. So we're going to go from top to bottom for those of you who haven't seen it. And then I'm going to ask the main question that I have. Okay, narrative submitted by Alexis Lucas. Okay, so we're assuming Alexis is sitting behind the desk at the police station when Rick walks in. Is that correct? Looks like they've coined the term. The term has been coined. A free Ricky turd. Well, I don't want to miss anything here. So I just want to make sure I'm following this correctly. Brian says, didn't he call in initially? Yeah, so he's pressured by his wife to call in because she knew that he was there. And she's probably becoming a little bit suspicious, right? You look like the guy on the bridge. You wouldn't let me go search. You told me you didn't go out on the bridge, but you always go out on the bridge. You love that bridge. Now, these two girls go missing near the bridge. You were there. You have to go talk to law enforcement, right? I'm not going to be hiding a fugitive or whatever. So he says, okay, gives them a call. And they say, hey, I can't really help you right now. I don't, maybe they didn't even know what to do. So redirected him, come down if you could. So he comes down probably strategically at the right time, right? After hours. Everything for him at this point is most likely going to be a countermeasure, right? I'll go after hours when all of the detectives have gone home, or after I see them leave, or something along those lines. So as he walks in to the office, the police station, sheriff's office, whichever, there is Alexis Lucas. That's the way I'm reading it. Alexis hands him a sheet. The way I understand it, Rick filled out the sheet. So Rick fills out a quick sheet, and this is the information that he puts on it. See, look how tricky this is. Another countermeasure. This is something Rick did to try to get it tangled up in the weeds. So he writes down Rick Allen Whiteman, knowing that he can explain it away. That's actually is his phone number. This is a landline, I believe. No, yeah, possibly. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I was at the trails Monday between maybe 1 and 3. During his interview, he said maybe 12:30 to 1:30. Red flag, changing his story. But he wrote down maybe 1 to 3. Remember, he's writing down 1 to 3, and he's only coming in because he thinks those girls can identify him. He doesn't realize that they cannot identify him. But in his mind, he's paranoid. He's right. Those girls recognize me from CVS or, whatever, Riley Park, or even the trails maybe. They're going to recognize me. I have to come forward and just deny it. Admit everything and then deny anything involved relating to the murder. So this was what he wrote down, maybe 1 and 3. Well, why did he write 1 and 3? These are the times that he ran into people. Right around 126, boom, ran into 3 girls. Right around 3, runs into Sarah Carbach. Or actually, 3's right in between when he sees Betsy Blair and Sarah Carbach. So that's like smack dab in the middle. So as long as they see him, that's fine. Like, he's at the trails, there's no big deal. But nobody saw me follow the girls and force him down the hill, is what he's thinking in the back of his mind. So in order to keep the story straight with his mom, his wife, and law enforcement, it all has to fit into that 1 to 3. Maybe even keeping him out of the muddy and bloody window, right? He's like, oh, 1 to 3. Knowing that the killer was seen with the jacket off, probably wrapped in his arm, wearing just the brown hoodie, covered in mud and blood. So he's probably thinking in the back of his head, they're not going to connect the two, right? I look different on the bridge than I did when I was leaving. So when he provided his time from 1 to 3, it has everything but the killer being seen, right? He didn't want to include that part. Tony Ann, what's up? Awesome topic for a live and great job at Charlie Kirk's funeral. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been busy, so I missed all this breaking news, Delphi news. So I was kind of hoping you guys had the scoop already. Unbelievable that he slipped through the net. See, I wouldn't call myself a subscriber, but I could definitely subscribe to the conspiracy theory that they found the information and sat on it. I think something like that could be possible. I think it's even possible that they came upon it in 2019 and sat on it. They were hoping that they were going to get a star witness, force Kathy to come forward, the daughter, the friends. And they were trying to hide the car, kind of like they were hiding the bullet information. They didn't want to show the car. That way they could say, hey, well, Kathy came in and said, hey, you guys need to take another look at my husband. I think he parked at the CPS building. And then they say, okay, well, what kind of car does he drive? And then it's her that says it, right? It's not them leading Kathy. So it'd be much more powerful in court if the jury heard that somebody like Kathy came in and said, yeah, that might be my husband's car. For whatever reason, he didn't admit to that part, but yeah, that's him. I thought he talked to you. They were hoping that that's what would happen. That way they can tell the jury, like, well, Kathy came in, she described the vehicle to us, and then we showed it to her. Hey, does it look like this one? And she's like, yep, that's it. But they didn't get that. But I can totally see them sitting on that. And then once they've exhausted everything with the Keegan Klein stuff and trying to connect the two, they just had to go for it. I just don't know why they made up this story. It makes it look nefarious. Like they tried to sit on it. That's some Illuminati shit. It's like you just sit on something or you sit on a crisis. Kind of like the bin Laden stuff. You had Obama sitting on it, knowing that he's in Pakistan. And when he needs it politically, he's like, oh, we found him. Let's go kill him. When they've been homies this entire time, you know what I mean? Thinking he's good. Like, hey, I did what you guys asked me to do. I'm just laying low here in Pakistan. Oh, politically, I need to kill this guy now. It's like I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Illuminati card game. It's like pulling a card out of that. Same with this, same thing. Oh, we'll sit on this. We know who Rick Allen is. We know that this was an isolated incident. We've already ran it. Maybe they even ran his DNA or something. You know what I mean? Illegally. Somebody should look into that. All right, he's not a serial killer. He's not attached to any other unsolved crimes in the area. We'll just sit on this, right? We'll kick the FBI out. They're getting too close. And when election time comes around, boom, we'll launch it. And we'll lean on Nick to get the job done. Knowing that he's guilty, of course, right? That doesn't mean that he's innocent. It just means they exploited the situation for their own benefit. What's up, Neil? I wonder if Richard Allen, the box cutter Allen, is still eating his own shit. No, that was just for shits and gigs. Tony, Richard Allen is not the shit. He's not the shit. That's what he ate. I thought Sarah saw him at 350 on County Road. Yeah, exactly. So I misspoke on that. I tried to correct myself, but what I meant to say was he said 1 to 3 because 1 o'clock is right when he sees the three girls, right? And then 3 is smack dab in between Betsy Blair and Sarah Carbaugh, but outside of the time frame to make him that killer, right? They're not going to tie me to the killer because when at the point where I was covered in mud and blood and saw Sarah Carbaugh, I looked completely different than I did on the bridge, is what he's thinking. Richard is saying he's no longer wants the appeals process to go ahead. Don't know how true it is. Honestly, he's probably not even saying anything. All he had to do was have his previous defense team get the appeals going, and he had to sign the paper and say, okay, go ahead with it. And now they're under the obligation to go through with it. They want to be successful. They don't give a shit about Rick. They just, honestly, they give a shit about, kicking ass on a case that they're working. So they're going to go through the process, and he's just going to keep his mouth shut like he did through the trial. Grunge, what up? Poor Otis, dead and gone, left me here to sing this song. Pretty little girl with the red dress on. Poor Otis, dead and gone. What's going on, Neil? And chat, Neil says. Welcome in, everybody. Melissa Wildcard, good to see you. Did you have her baby? Did I have my baby? Yes. Yes, indeedy. Okay, so do you guys agree with me? Rick Allen calls. He's asked to come in. He comes in after hours. Alexa said, this is our protocol. I need you to fill this out. Rick fills out Rick Allen Whiteman, 317-612-4533. Was at the trails Monday between maybe 1 and 3. That's him. That's how he talks. Maybe. He advised he did see 3 females. So if it's written that way, he must be talking to her. So he's talking to her and she's writing this down. Later, she comes back and types it into the system. Most likely disposing of the notes, right? Just a notepad, sticky note, something like that. All right, it says entities, reporting person, Rick Allen Whiteman. So I think Rick had something to do with this. It's like his MO. It's his part of his cleanup style. Yep, she sure did. Neil, that Baldwin Joker just can't stand he lost the case. It really grinds his gears. Honestly, I don't think he gives a shit. I don't think it bothers him at all. I think he loves to talk about the case. Man, he loves to put a spin on it. He loves all the attention. That's why he prolonged it all. It was one big infomercial. I mean, he was able to convince a lot of people. They're still out there thinking Rick's innocent and that Odinus did it. He got a, you know what I mean? You go fishing, you're going to catch something. Right? You throw that net through a pool of minnows, you're going to grab a few. They're still stuck in the net. Baldwin's texts are all talking money and coverage for his law firm. Absolutely, I don't blame him for that. I don't hate the player, hate the game. It goes back to the frog and the scorpion. I would expect nothing less from a defense attorney, right? God forbid a defense attorney puts the spin on a case he's working. That's literally his job. That's why I call them the spin doctors. Little miss can't be wrong. What's up, Harvey? Like you said, Sleuth, the only reason to keep the vehicle description secret is because they were sitting on the tip. Yeah, so why lie? Why perjure yourself during the trial? Um, is that something, was it illegal for them to do that? Like, I don't have a problem that they did it. I just am curious as to why they would lie about it during a trial under oath. Don says, you notice you don't hear Rosie out there, but ego freak Baldwin is out there everywhere. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. Is he married? He's probably trying to hook up with some of these groupies out here. I don't blame him for that neither. Get it while the getting's good. Strike the hammer when the iron's hot. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Do what you got to do. I think Rosie's got a family. He seems like more like a family man. He seems a little more tight knit. But I could be wrong. If there was only a follow up interview with Richard a few days after he came forward, he would have been arrested a lot sooner. Yeah, so maybe they didn't really. Maybe that's what the whole 2019 New Direction presser was all about, right? Was trying to. They were fishing for Kathy. Like, all right, Kathy knows where he parked, what he was driving. She knows that he looks younger. Like, he doesn't look like the old guy sketch. People that know Rick, they know that he looks younger than his age. So they were trying to. She had gained so much confidence in the old guy sketch and the fact that he had come forward, that she was swimming in her denial. The plausible deniability was plentiful for her. It was like a garden of plush roses and dandelions. She was wallowing in it. And it would take something drastic to pull her out of that. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Just before they get to Emerald City, she's passed out in the poppy field. And she doesn't want to wake up. So how do they try to jar her out of that? The New Direction presser. Like, we want to know who was parked at the CPS building. And it looks younger. We're looking for a younger guy now. Right, Kathy? We know you weren't buying the older one. Look, here, look at this. Come on. Bethany, hello. Bethany's new husband, best friends. Look, here he is. But it's like they never came forward. Because then it would have been a slam dunk. They could have did a DMV check like they all at Devil's Den. I just don't get it. Yeah, they absolutely knew whose vehicle it was. That's why they didn't show the car. But why did they hide the tip? I don't understand. Or maybe they didn't. Are they hiding the tip, or are they hiding the date that they found the tip? Let's look further on here. Do you still have, and can you show that image you captured of possibly Ricky at the presser behind the camera? I can check. Let me see. Let me see what I can find. I probably labeled it 2018 presser. Let's see, behind the scenes. Yeah, I might have it. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I was getting ready. I was putting some content together for a live stream, and I ran into some information that I hadn't seen before. And basically, it said that anybody that entered, who was allowed into the 2019 presser, they had to sign in. They had to leave their name and their phone number. You weren't allowed in unless you did that. And then you have Doug Carter say the killer could be in this room. And then also, they chose to do it less than a mile from Richard Allen's home. Like, you could throw a rock, you could walk to the tip of Richard Allen's road and throw a rock over of those houses and hit that church if you wanted to. Right? Micah, he lived up the street from Richard Allen in that little, looks like an Illuminati pyramid that for whatever reason is kept outside of city limits. I don't know what that's all about. I'd be checking for some underground tunnels over there for all you conspiracy theorists. Right? Micah, get the lights. Hit the lights, Micah. So the fact that they had to sign in made me think, hey, did they suspect that Richard Allen or the killer was going to these press conferences, right? Why have two press conferences and then all of a sudden on this one, everybody needs to sign in? So I went back. I might have pulled these off of X. And I saw this little short guy trying to peek over the top here. And it even looks like he might be wearing a mask. But I don't know if this was COVID yet. Or that even could be part of whatever's on top of this camera too. You see that? Don's asking, why wait 5 years? I just don't get it. He was a danger to the community. But wait, they did that with KK. What the fuck? Yeah, I just don't get it. I just don't understand. And it goes back to the frog and the scorpion, right? God forbid you expect a cop to exploit a case for their benefit. You know what I mean? God forbid they do something corrupt. I'm not saying all law enforcement is corrupt, but I mean, come on. Above the law. Most of them feel they're above the law for sure. I am the law. Judge Dredd. I am the law. But anyway. Okay, entities, reporting person Rick Allen Whiteman. Can't help but think he had something to do with that. Leads triggered by Din. I don't know if that's tip 74 or tip 74 put into Orion. Contact Rick about seeing girls. See if he observed others such as possible suspects. And it seems somewhat edited around this area, but I could be wrong. It might just be something that's left out on the printing. You know, you can print this out, but there might be buttons or some other items here that don't print out. You know what I mean? All right, invest DIN C00074-01 triggered by DIN C000074. So what do they mean triggered? And does the 01 represent like an addition? In addition to? or page. It's almost like you have file page 00 and now you have 00, or excuse me, 01. So let's see what they're adding to 01 that was triggered by 000074. Contact Rick about seeing girls, see if he observed others as possible suspects. Carroll County Sheriff's Office investigations. Investigator Ashley Boone. Okay, so who is Ashley Boone? Who dat? Yeah, he does say that, Don. I made a video on that. That's an old video that I have. He says the guest of honor is here. Now we can begin. Like, what the hell? So maybe they were toying with him like the entire time, right? And then they found out that what they were doing was not legal and that everything, it was kind of like fruit of a poison tree. Like, because we did this in an illegal fashion, it will not be admissible. So therefore, they had to concoct a story after running out of options and money with Kagan Klein. But exploiting the fact that they knew Richard Allen was responsible doesn't make him innocent. Even though, what you call them, the free Ricky turds, try to spin it that way. You know, God forbid these Freemasons exploit a crisis. So when you feel like there's this Freemason corruption, I think that that's what I'm picking up on is possibly a conspiracy of manipulating the case, kind of playing puppeteer, getting a really good look at Richard Allen and not really seeing him as a threat. Like, hey, this was a one-off. You know, he was going through a weird patch. Maybe we can sit on this. Or maybe we can sit on this and catch a bigger fish. You know, maybe we can use him. And then we'll get Keegan Klein, and then we'll get his dad. And then, you know, maybe they were trying to, maybe that explains Doug Carter making that tentacles comment. Right? You know, Richard Allen being the head of the octopus. Like, all right, we got Richard Allen here, or maybe even Keegan Klein and Richard Allen, and they're trying to, I don't know, maybe honeypot it. Shit, maybe that was the FBI's idea. Like, we'll honeypot this son of a gun. And when that didn't work, they kicked the FBI out and had to fucking come up with some story. So they didn't lose the little bit of evidence that they had. Just a thought. Just a thought. All right. Carroll County Sheriff's Office investigations. So she must have worked for Carroll County Sheriff's Office. Do we know who this person is? Not that it matters. I'm just wondering. Who the hell is Jermaine Boone? Is that Ashley? Jermaine, and then it shows a woman. That doesn't seem right. No. If anybody has any information on her, send it to me, will you? Don says they would have looked a lot better had they caught him right off. They could have used that in the election. I think you're right. They had to get legitimate evidence, but they had the bullet. The bullet equals Richard Allen only. So if they're wanting to use Richard Allen as some kind of bait, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just trying to find an excuse. Like it's either that or they're just completely horrible at their job. And they weren't even on top of any of this. It makes it seem like faking an alibi would be pretty easy with these guys. All right, lead coverage, full coverage, covered by, I think that's, what's her name, Gata? Hold on, I might have. So I had this email address. Check this out. And I don't know if this confirms it, but I shared it in my Discord the other day. Hold on. I may have taken a screenshot. It'll save me some time. Yep, there it is. So I'm pretty sure it was this person, but I didn't want to just throw it out there and be wrong. And I still could be wrong. I don't know. But I believe this is who Carroll County tried to blame it on. They tried to blame it, I think it was on Teresa Gata. And I think that's the name that we're reading here. Covered by Teresa Gata. So I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay, it is her. Maybe. I don't know. But it says here she works for former OST, retired at FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. So she must be the one that wrote cleared. But it doesn't matter if she wrote cleared, right? But let's not get ahead. So covered by Teresa on behalf of Dan Dulan. So remember, Dan Dulan said he handed over the tip and followed protocol. And they blamed the FBI for screwing it up. So let's see if that adds up. All right. So it says here, covered by Teresa, who is an employee of the FBI, on behalf of Dan Dulan. Dan Dulan says, here you go. Thank you very much. This is the information I gathered from Rick Allen. Is that 210? On 210, at about 4:03 p.m., she typed this in here. Mr. Allen was on the trail between 1:30 and 3:30. He parked at the old Farm Bureau building and walked to the new Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. He noted one was taller and had brown or black long hair. All right, let's stop right there. Okay, so we need to bring ourselves back to the beginning of the investigation. So remember, their feet aren't even wet yet. They haven't even gotten their whistle wet yet. They're just diving into the case, right? They're barely getting a list of all the people that were there. So even the investigative team doesn't even know about the 3 girls yet, right? So Richard Allen's over here tipping in, and the investigators are still out there gathering the information. It takes weeks and months to kind of get it all laid out to where it makes sense. So I can see how it really wouldn't click at this point, because what makes it click is the vehicle that all the witnesses eventually tell them that they saw. Hey, we saw a vehicle that was parked at the old CPS building. They're like, okay, we're starting to see a pattern here. And then they interview the 3 young witnesses. Okay, weeks later, they finally get around to it. They say, yeah, we saw the creepy guy. And then they show them the photograph. but they've already forgotten about Rick Allen. They've already forgot about Rick Allen and the fact that he ran into these 3 girls. So when they had the Rick Allen information, they had no clue about the rest of it, and why the 3 females were so important. So when they lost this tip, but most importantly, when it was misfiled by, apparently, right? So the physical copy was misplaced, and Teresa apparently, for whatever reason, filed it incorrectly. I mean, ISP in Carroll County literally blamed her to the point where, shortly after the arrest of Richard Allen, the FBI had to make a statement saying, hey, we stand behind our employee, and she followed all the rules. She did everything. So is it Teresa that's perpetrating a conspiracy, or is it the other group, Kathy Shank and these other people, not really trying to hide the fact or pin it on Rick Allen, but realizing that who the killer is, them making the judgment call saying, hey, he's not dangerous. He must have just fucking went nuts. We know he's a little bit crazy. Maybe even ran his DNA or something and then decided to exploit it. Perhaps. What's up, Timmy? Maybe they didn't have enough for a search warrant at the time and needed time. I don't know. Well, think about it. They didn't have anything new when they had when they found the lost tip. All they could really say was, hey, look, we lost this tip, and if we had the chance to interview him, we would have done exactly what we did this time, right? We would have interviewed him, we would have interrogated him, we would have pushed him, we would have tried to get his phone, and then we would have served a search warrant and eventually found his phone. But for whatever reason, we lost this tip. Teresa Gata didn't file it correctly. So when they went into the system, it's like she pulled it out of Orion and then cleared it on their end. So she pulled it out of the FBI's system to where when ISP wanted to kind of look for it and try to index it or just search it through the system, it wouldn't pop up. So, okay, any lead dealing with 3 witnesses, 3 girls, or, they're trying to find anything that pops up in the Orion system. And unfortunately, the information that was presented by Richard Allen was misfiled by what looks to be this Teresa person, who may or may not be the individual that I showed on the screen in the public Facebook. Be a fly on the wall when Richard Allen heard Carter say those words, hiding in plain sight. So what did they say? Don't attribute to malice what could be easily attributed to negligence or incompetence. So, the fact that she was an FBI employee and she had access to Orion meant that she probably had access that she shouldn't have had, or maybe she just made a mistake, took it out of the system. Therefore, when they tried to search the system after finding new information, right, they don't know about these 3 witnesses. Yeah, we have this guy, Richard Allen. He was on the trail, and he's one of a dozen people that were there that day, coming and going. He's not the only man that was there that fits the description of the killers, right? You have like a dozen men and teenage boys and young men that were there that day that fit that description. So Richard Allen is just a needle in a semi-decent pile of hay. So right now he's lost. It doesn't mean anything. Weeks go by. Now they've interviewed these people. They know that they're interested in a vehicle. They see a pattern with the car. Shit, we have 3 different witnesses reporting some type of vehicle. They're not retarded, so they understand that witnesses get things wrong. To them, they believe that they're seeing the same car, but they've interviewed probably hundreds of witnesses throughout their career, and they understand how that works. Us, like when I first started true crime, I was ignorant to that. I was ignorant to it. Like, oh, the witness saw this. We have to, we got to listen to what they say. But the truth is, they're not really witnesses. They're just somebody who remembers seeing something, and they're trying to recollect to the best of their ability, which unfortunately can be skewed. It can be fabricated, even missing pieces can be filled in with personal memories and bias. It's really weird. So it's not trustworthy. So when you have three people saying, oh, I can't really remember what the car is, because none of them described it in great detail. They just said, oh, I'm not quite sure. And it might have been like this. And Betsy Blair said it reminded her of her father's vehicle, right? That's what happens when you're trying to recollect or recall. You're going to take personal information and fit it in the gaps. So it makes total sense if you are somewhat educated on witness testimony and how vague it really could be. So that's all she did. She remembers seeing the car parked at the CPS building, but because she wasn't supposed to remember it or didn't even really care, all she really knows is, hey, only thing I took notice of, it was parked there in a weird way. It was backed in. So if it's backed in and she's not supposed to really pay attention to it, and that's all she really notices, she's going to fill in the gaps later on. And it makes sense that she said, hey, it looked like my dad's car. Looks like an old car my dad had. It makes fucking perfect sense, because that's what witnesses do when they can't remember or when they try to remember. But the important thing here is that Rick said 1:30, and he bumped into these girls at 1:30, and he described them in great detail, because I think his strategy was, if I admit to everything but the murders, because that's where he took care, right? Remember, he said, I was sitting on the bench. Well, that bench that he was sitting at is directly across the Mears lot. You can see the Mears farm, and you can see the path leading to the Freedom Bridge as well. You can see everything. You can even see down another trail that a lot of people don't talk about, which is the 505 trail, that Rick actually helped the McCains tear down an old shack down there, an old corn crib. So he talked about that during his interview, that, hey, I worked with the McCains, and because I worked with them, he was able to direct funding from Walmart to their foundation. So it makes you wonder, were they running a scam or something? Was Dave McCain somehow involved? Did he have access to Richard Allen's bullet from being in contact with him? And why does Rick Allen name drop him during his interrogation? There's a lot of weird shit going on. So this whole narrative of Dan Dulan is false. Yeah, Dan Dulan did his job. He did. We can't blame Dan at all. He went in and he got all the pertinent information, right? Mr. Allen, trail between 1:30, 3:30, parked at the old Farm Bureau building. This is all Dan Dulan. All this information comes from him. He did good. Right, explains it. Walked to the New Freedom Bridge. While at the New Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. See, parked at the old Farm Bureau building and walked to the New Freedom Bridge. Now, the New Freedom Bridge is right next to the old CPS building. There's a trail. If you park there at the CPS building, there's a trail from there that leads to the entrance of the Freedom Bridge. And Rick, during his interrogation, referred to it as the trailhead, and also meeting and bumping into these witnesses at the trailhead. So the reason he did that is because his wife knew he was at the trails. That puts him at the trails. If he lies about seeing these girls, it's going to make him look guilty. They're going to arrest him. They're going to go search his home. So he admits to everything, which is very smart, right? Everybody's underestimating him. But when it comes to crime and trying to cover up his murder, so far he's doing pretty good. He's showing sophistication. Not in his crime, not in the way he killed Abby and Libby. That was reckless, and I think if it doesn't include the Kleins, it was just opportunistic. You know, he was going through a rough time. They were easy victims. He's suffering from all these personality disorder, maybe even somewhat secretive about his sadism. He's a very quiet, secretive guy. Yep, nobody witnessed the crime. They just witnessed the bridge guy. So Rick's saying, well, I have to find a way to fit in what my wife knows with what I'm going to tell law enforcement. It has to be able to overlap, or shouldn't overlap. It should line up. But you notice when Kathy and Rick are in the same room together, it's a lot like the Ghostbusters, right? They cross the streams. Yeah, you don't want to do that. And that's when Rick just basically shut down. He stopped talking. He said, you know what? Whatever. I love you. And then he tells her to go get an attorney. Why didn't he get an attorney? Because he's your typical sadistic killer, psycho killer. He thinks he can outsmart the cops. And not only that, he needs to know what they know. He doesn't want anything more in the world than to get his hands on all of the information that they have. So when he sees the car and he sees the bullet and he sees all of this information, that justifies him not walking out of there. He's like, okay, this is what they have. It's not as much as I thought, right? He even mentioned, oh, they think this was some kind of scheme and other people were involved. So maybe when they didn't really prove that, he felt comfortable, like they don't know shit. And maybe that's the frustration. The whole $2 million Kagan Klein bill that was left for the people of Indiana and Carroll County, and them not being able to seal the deal. That could explain the motivation for the lost tip, and basically counting their losses, right? Let's pick up our chips now. And that was Richard Allen. They were barely successful. Don says, so maybe if they knew Richard Allen was the culprit, he stood there quiet about the car and the cops building. I thought this document is showing that meeting with Dulan ever happened at the grocery store. Yeah, it doesn't really talk about where the tip was taken. So we got all that in court. But what this does tell us is what was submitted in the paperwork and who submitted it. So we have the chain of command here. Chain of command goes phone call to Rick Allen visiting, most likely after hours. And then Alexis Lucas taking his information, writing it down, asking him questions. Okay, what'd you see? What's your phone number? What's your name? Rick Allen Whiteman. He lies about that. Says, yeah, I was at the trails Monday between 1 and 3, and I saw 3 young females. She says, okay, boom, boom, boom. Triggered. She enters in the lead, and boom, triggered the 74. Contact Rick about seeing girls. See if he observed others such as possible subjects. So the investigator, Ashley Boone, picks it up from that point. And I think this is when she hands it over to Dulan. Right? Ashley says, hey, can you follow up on this? Dan Dulan follows up, passes it off to FBI employee Teresa. Teresa enters in exactly what Dulan had written down. Right, walk from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He stated there were vehicles parked at the High Bridge trailhead. However, he did not pay any attention to them. He did not take any photos or video. His cell phone did not list on the IMEI, but did have the following. So there's cell phone information. Potential follow-up information. Who were the 3 girls walking in the area of Freedom Bridge? So that's what they tried to find out. So that's it for that tip. Never heard he went to police station. Always heard he met Dulan. No, he did. That's what happened. He went to the police station, Don, and that's where he gave his lead. He gave his lead with that Alexis woman. She passed that information on to Dan Dulan, or to an investigator, Boone. Boone reached out to Dan Dulan and said, hey, can you follow up on this tip that Rick Allen left at the police station? Because Rick probably went there after hours on purpose. right? Like, hey, I went to the police station. I'm going to leave the wrong name, kind of. You know what I mean? At least I can say I came down here, and I can tell my wife 100% I was down here. So he tells Boone. Boone asks Dan Dulan to meet him. So at that point, Dulan reaches out to Rick Allen. Hey, can you come down to the police station? Rick says, no, I can't. I'm busy now. Well, can I come to your home? No, I'm not comfortable with that. Well, I'm going grocery shopping right now. If you want to meet me at the Save-A-Lot, it's like literally 200 yards from the CVS. Dulan says, okay. Then meets him in the parking lot. Dulan takes all that information, takes it, and hands it over to Teresa, who is an FBI employee. Right here, it states here, Teresa on behalf of Dan Dulan. Okay, so I think I might have a grasp on what's happening. So now it's in her hands. And I believe this is what her final product was. Orion work package. So you can kind of see how it continues, right? These are basically additions. So you got Alexis, received by Jerry Holman. So this is the part that doesn't make sense. So I don't know if Jerry Holman was relying on the Orion system to track this information, and Teresa was the one that removed it from the Orion system, not necessarily clearing Richard Allen as a suspect, but saying, hey, look, this piece of information that was in the Orion system has been cleared. All of that information has been sent over to ISP, because that's what the Orion system is. It's kind of like it's like a waiting room, right? If you have valid information, you throw it in the waiting room. Boom. And it's connected to the FBI. It's connected to ISP. It's connected to the sheriff's office. All these different police agencies have access to put information into the Orion system. So, but it's not, they don't want it to stay there forever. Eventually, they're going to go sort through it. And I think that's what they thought they did with this tip here. They pulled it out of the Orion. They thought it was worked to its entirety, and then they cleared it out of Orion. But here it says that Jerry Holman had it the entire time since 2016. So if anybody lost the tip, it was him. If it wasn't for Jerry losing that information and Teresa marking that it was sent off. So if these guys were relying on Orion to type in, okay, do we have anything relating to 3 witnesses? All right, do we have anybody relating to parking at the CPS building? Right? Nothing's popping up in the Orion system. Well, it's not there anymore because Teresa cleared it. But she didn't clear it until she did what she was supposed to do. So when the FBI says that she followed protocol, this is what she's talking about. Received by Jerry Holman. He had it the entire time. I don't care if it says Rick Allen Whiteman. It has his phone number. Rick Allen Whiteman, 317-612-4533. If a simple search pulls up Rick Allen and Kathy Allen under that name or under that phone number. Was advised, did see 3 young females. All right, copied Alexis's notes. She's the one that actually took this information and sent it over to ISP. And then it was ISP, or excuse me, Carroll County Sheriff's Office that sent it over to Dan Dulan. Because they had these other agencies that were helping out that were trained to interview, to take witness information. Dan Dulan was qualified and more than able to do that. So it looks like he did what he was supposed to do. Followed up on the tip, but it looks like Teresa and Jerry Holman dropped the ball on this. So, you know, sometimes you print out all this paper and you put together what's probably referred to as a packet. And you're like, all right, this packet's complete. But sometimes you put together partial packets or incomplete packets. And I feel like what Kathy Shank might have stumbled upon was an incomplete packet, or a packet that was marked cleared. It just had all of the paperwork in it and was completed, and maybe was even meant to be filed as cleared. But for whatever reason, just through a series of unfortunate events, got swept under the rug. All right, guys, this will be our 5-minute warning. Let me know what you think. What do you think? Brian says, didn't Dulan conduct the initial follow of Richard Allen? The picture of Bridge Guy was made public. Yeah, so this is the way it is, right? You have the Richard Allen information, but you've already interviewed 20 people today. Richard Allen, he does his part. He does a good Jedi mind trick, and he looks pathetic. That's why he's able to fool a lot of people. They're like, "Oh, look at this little pathetic guy." Right? He couldn't pull this off. Well, you guys got to realize that's by design. That's not an accident. This is a man that's been a chameleon his entire life. The sources that I've established, a guy that went to school with Rick, drove him. He went to school with Rick every day. They drove together all the way from elementary through high school, or through middle school. He said he was the quietest guy he's ever known. For years, he didn't say one fucking word. How do you go 5, 6, 7 years and you don't say one fucking thing? That is a guy that's internalizing everything. That has childhood trauma written all over it. So if he's living in his head and shit falls apart, he's suffering from all these different issues. I mean, this is just a disaster waiting to happen. Question is, did law enforcement sit on that information? They, kind of zoomed in on and focused in on Richard Allen and thought, well, this guy's not a threat. Or maybe we don't. Maybe you're right, Don. Maybe they didn't have enough information. They didn't have enough evidence. All I know is that they testified during the trial that, Kathy Shank found that tip, and that if it wasn't for that, they probably wouldn't be able to justify serving a search warrant. So could be your basic fruit of a poison tree. And that could be the conspiracy that we're picking up on in our gut, right? We know that there's something not quite right about what's going on. So I don't know. Maybe that happens more often than we think. It says Alexis had after Holman. It says right here, created by Alexis Lucas, received by Jerry Holman. Oh, you're looking at the time here, 8:45 p.m., 4:30 p.m. Yeah, that doesn't line up. See, then it has Alexis here with the Rick Allen Whiteman information. Yeah, it does say created by, received by. So does that mean that it was sent to Jerry Holman for whatever reason? He sent it to Alexis? That doesn't make any sense. Maybe all tips that are generated are all leads. Maybe they do go to him first. Right? You have the lead, it goes in, boom, goes to Jerry Holman. And then he kind of disseminates it or passes out. I'm not quite sure. I still haven't made heads or tails of this just yet. I'm still trying to figure out their system here. Work package. So Orion work package. So to me, this is what I think Shank found. She found this folder, Orion work package, that was probably sent to Jerry Holman, right? Good to see you, CJK, Cheeks, Phil Bond. Brian says crazy. It's like Richard Allen Could have shown up to speak with Dulan wearing a BG outfit. Dulan was too busy trying to ID the 3 females Richard Allen saw. Yeah. Oh, yeah, maybe. Maybe that's the last edited. I don't know, Cheeks. Good eye, though. Good eye. So we'll revisit this, you guys. We'll come back to all of this. Hopefully, you that haven't seen it, we'll take a closer look at it. If you guys want to take some screenshots. What's up, TJ? What up? What up? There you have it. All right. All right, guys. That's all I had for you today. I look forward to seeing you guys again. Let me know what you find out about these documents or anything relating to it. You can always shoot me an email, sleuthintuition@gmail.com. And if you're part of the replay crew and you know a little bit more about these documents, let me know. Let me know what you find out, anything that we might have wrong, and we'll continue to take a look. And if you guys can, hit the Cash App. And if you can't hit the Cash App, hit the like button. And share the video if you can. Consider becoming a member. And a special thank you to my current members, my subscribers, and all my hardworking mods. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Love you all. Have a great night. I'll see you again soon. Peace.